So, what actually makes a decision a good one? Is it all about the outcome, or is there something more to it? Today, we're going to dive deep into what truly defines a high-quality decision, and not just for us humans, but for the AI systems we're building to help us out. Let's kick things off with a little thought experiment.
Okay, so picture this. You bet your entire life savings on a single coin flip. And you win. Amazing outcome, right? You're rich. But let's be honest, was it a good decision? This simple question gets right to the heart of a huge challenge. How in the world do we separate the quality of the choice itself from the randomness of how things turned out?
So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to break down what a truly good decision looks like. Then, we'll get into how we can actually teach an AI to think that way. We'll explore the two different faces of uncertainty, put decision quality head-to-head with service quality, and then we'll wrap it all up to show why this stuff is so important for the future of AI.
All right, let's start with a really fundamental shift in how we think about this. A high-quality decision, it turns out, isn't about looking in the rearview mirror and celebrating a good outcome. No, it's all about judging the process at the very moment the choice was made.
This right here, this really nails it. I mean, look at these two paths. You can have an amazing, well-reasoned process and still, thanks to just plain bad luck, end up with a bad outcome. On the flip side, a terrible process, like our coin flip gamble, can totally stumble into a great outcome. The key isn't the result, it's the quality of the thinking that went into it beforehand.
So how do we actually measure that quality, right? Well, a great way to think about it is like a chain with 6 essential links. If even one of those links is weak, the whole decision gets shaky. It all starts with framing the problem correctly. Then, you got to come up with realistic alternatives. Gather good, reliable info, be clear on your values and what you're willing to trade off, use sound, logical reasoning, and finally, you have to commit to actually doing it. You see, it's not just a gut feeling, it's a really solid, structured process.
Okay, so that's the human side. Now let's see how this whole framework applies to AI. I mean, if we want an AI to be a real partner in making big decisions, it can't just be a lucky guesser. It needs a process we can trust. And this is where a really powerful idea called decision-focused learning comes into play. DFL basically flips the whole script on traditional machine learning. See, instead of just training a model to be accurate, like, say, predicting sales, it trains the model to make predictions that lead to the best possible decision. The big goal here is to minimize what's called regret. That's the difference between the outcome you got and the best possible outcome you could have gotten. It's all about making choices you're least likely to look back on and wish you'd done something else.
And this is exactly why DFL is such a game changer. It aligns the AI's training directly with the real-world goal, whether that's managing a supply chain or figuring out how to allocate hospital beds. It helps create a model that's way more robust when things get uncertain, and it improves the final decision itself, not just some abstract prediction along the way.
Now, that point about uncertainty is absolutely critical. To have sound reasoning, remember that's link number 5 in our chain, and AI has to understand what it doesn't know. And it turns out there are two very different kinds of not knowing. First, you've got what's called aleatoric uncertainty. This is just the inherent built-in randomness of the universe, the coin flip, right? No matter how much data you collect, you'll never be able to predict it perfectly. But then there's epistemic uncertainty. This is a lack of knowledge problem. Think of it like having a map with big blank spots on it. You can absolutely reduce this kind of uncertainty by going out and collecting more data, by filling in the map. And here is the crucial point. For us to ever really trust an AI, it has to know the difference between these two. It needs to know when something is truly random versus when it just doesn't have enough information yet. That kind of self-awareness is the absolute key to making high-quality decisions.
This brings us to another really vital distinction. You know, we're so used to measuring our technology by how fast and reliable it is, but that is not the same thing as the quality of its judgment. Let's compare the quality of a decision with a metric you might be more familiar with, quality of service.
Quality of service, or QoS, is a term from network engineering. It's all about raw performance. Is the connection fast? Is there a lot of lag? Is it reliable? Just think of it like the pipeline that delivers information. High QoS means that pipeline is super wide, super fast, and never, ever leaks. You know, seeing them side by side like this makes the difference crystal clear. Quality of decision is about the cognitive process of making a choice. It's strategic. Quality of service is about the technical performance of delivering something. It's operational. And here's the kicker. You can have a system with perfect QoS that instantly delivers a terribly reasoned, low-quality decision right to your screen. Speed isn't the same as smarts. So, why are we hammering this point home?
Why does this distinction matter so much? Well, because when we start relying on AI for really high-stakes stuff, confusing fast service with good judgment can be incredibly dangerous.
This quote from some recent research says it all. An AI can be fast, it can be reliable, that's high QoS, but the moment it sees something new, something it wasn't trained on, it can spit out a confident but completely wrong answer. That is a massive failure of decision quality. It's failing to recognize its own epistemic uncertainty. It simply doesn't know what it doesn't know.
And this is why it all matters so much. In a field like medicine, an overconfident mistake can be catastrophic. Real trust comes from an AI that knows its own limits. It also makes us all more efficient, right? We can let the AI handle the clear-cut cases and call in human experts when the AI basically raises its hand and says, hey, I'm not so sure about this one. And finally, it gives us accountability. We can look under the hood and understand the AI's process, not just stare at its final answer.
So this leaves us with a really critical question for the future. As these AI systems get more and more powerful, more integrated into our lives, of course we're going to want them to be fast and reliable. But is that enough? Or should our main demand be for something much deeper, for better judgment? I think the answer to that is going to define the kind of AI we build and ultimately the kind of world we all want to live in.